He charges at Naofumi, but all his attacks gets blocked. The spear uses a skill that hurts him, but he gets up and runs forward, delivering a fisting so his monsters can have a taste. But he slays the monsters and goes in for a strike, but the shield counters the blow. Naofumi summons a shield to push him back, then imprison the spear with monsters that attack him. He lets out the spear and tells him to surrender, but he gets blown away by magic and sees mine on the battlefield. The spear suddenly rushes at him and lands a blow that manages to put down Naofumi. The spear is declared the winner, but Naofumi steps up and pointed out that mine helped him in the fight. But everyone remains silent, so the king congratulates the spear. Mine comes over to gloat over him, then it's revealed that she is the king's daughter. Naofumi realizes that everything was a setup from the very beginning and wonders why everyone's against him. They bring Raphtalia forwards and uses magic to undo the contract with Naofumi, then she turns and leave. He tries to throw away the shield, but it returns to him, so he decides that this world should be destroyed. Raphtalia slaps the spear and explains that Naofumi has been nothing but good to her because they are a team, and reveals that he saved her from rotting away in a cage and passing. The other heroes arrive and tells the spear that he lost the fight because mine intervened and the king commanded the audience to remain quiet. Raphtalia goes over to Naofumi. He tells her to leave and stay away from him because he's a loser, but Raphtalia says that she thinks he's innocent of everything they accuse him of, but he doesn't believe her and tries to rip off the shield. She places her hands on it and begins reminding him of all the people that he saved using the shield and embrace him in a hug to remind him that she is still his sword. He finally sees her as an adult and questions when she grew up, while he leaks man juice as she continues to embrace him until he falls asleep. He awakens on heaven and goes on the roof to have some lunch. He bites into the food and realizes that he can now taste it. They head towards the throne room and accepts their rewards, but they tell Naofumi that his reward was freeing Raphtalia. The bow and sword hero says that it's unfair for him not to get paid because mine cheated in the match and he also defended a village from complete annihilation. So the king allows him to get the minimum paid allowed. They go to the trader's tent where Raphtalia decided to have her contract restored. The trader tells them about eggs that birth chocobo with a chance to get a dragon. Naofumi buys one and heads towards the medicine shop. He gives Naofumi a book because he saved his relatives in the village and is sent to the magic shop, who gives him a magic book because her grandson was also saved in the village. He heads towards the village to have a nap but awakens to find that the egg is about to hatch. Filo jumps on his head and imprints on him. They take her out to eat and she grows until she's big enough to ride, but Filo can't control their speed and crashes through everything. The villagers gather as mine reveals that the spear now rules the village and is placing heavy taxes on them. Naofumi speaks up and says that she's tweaking. The villagers agree, so mine scolds them, but the secret services comes in and gives her a scroll. Mine challenges Naofumi to a race for the village, but he refuses until the villagers begs him to give her all the smoke. They go on their mounts and begins the race. Naofumi takes an early lead, but the knights create a hole in the ground to trip Filo, allowing the spear to pass him. Naofumi makes a comeback, so another knight casts a speed debuff on them. Filo goes plus ultra and passes him once more. Then a knight casts haste on the spear, but Naofumi uses air shield to jump over a trap and wall runs to get beside him and beats the spear at the very end. Filo transforms into a queen chocobo. Some mine comes over to accuse them of cheating, but the secret service reveals that she's the one that broke the rules, so she goes away. The villagers wants to reward him, so Filo chooses the carriage. While traveling, Raphtalia comes down with motion sickness, so they decide to set up camp and drifts off to dreamland. Naofumi awakens with a lawsuit on his lap and begins to freak out. He carries Filo to the shopkeeper for clothes that doesn't tear when she transforms, but he sends them to a clothes shop. But she doesn't have any magical thread, so she sends them to the magic shop, but she doesn't have any magic stones, so she sends them away until she gets some. They travel along a path but sees a man who is in need of a lift to his village. Naofumi decides to leave the carriage and carries the man home so his mother can receive her medicine. Naofumi feeds it to her, which causes the lady to be immediately healed, then collects his pay from his passenger. He realizes that he can start an Uber and begins traveling around transporting people and selling medicines to the ill. While transporting a merchant, The road up ahead gets blocked by bandits. They ask for the merchant, so Raphtalia goes down and uses magic to go stealth, then performs a team ultimate with Filo to take them down. He practices bondage and threatens to make Filo have them for lunch, so they carry him to their base so he can take all their shit. To thank Naofumi, the merchant teaches him how to make jewelry and shows him a mine filled with magic stones. They get the magic shopkeeper and carry her to the dungeon. They head inside, but they're suddenly caught in a genjutsu and hear their loved ones speak ill of them. The mage dispels their attack, then Filo gives the monsters a blowjob. They travel further into the dungeon and finds a room filled with crystals, but a chimera is guarding it. His party runs forward and attacks, but they get knocked down. Naofumi blocks the pussycat so Filo can drop kick it and rescue him from the shock of his life. Raphtalia goes stealth, but it hears her and tries to give a kiss. They realize that it has very good hearing, so he makes Filo scream into a microphone to give the mage the chance to cook it while Raphtalia performs surgery, leaving Filo to land a fatality. They head to the shop so Filo can make magic threads to carry to the dressmaker so she can get clothes that won't tear when she transforms. The next day, they get a mission to deliver plant killers to a village. They go inside and find out that the plants have been attacking anyone who tries to leave and has been feeding on their people to make them sick. He goes over and uses his shield to create an antidote to heal them. The villagers begs him to defeat the plants and explains that the spear hero gave them the seed to plant to cure them of hunger, but it became too much and started to attack everyone. They offer all their money to hire him, so he goes out to destroy the vegans' food. They find a giant tree in the city, so Filo decides to give it a little poke, but it instantly regenerates. So Naofumi commands them to do a tag team attack, but Raphtalia gets bondaged, but since it's PG, Naofumi walks forward and destroys all the branches that touch him, so he can use the plant killer to destroy the vegan king. He unlocks a skill that allows him to manipulate the plant's growth rate, and goes back to the village to plant a seed that he altered to grow many fruits but won't attack people. The villagers thank him for his help and he leaves with many fruits in his carriage that he carries to the merchant so he can sell them. They travel down a path and hears a story about a village that has been affected by a plague. Our party goes to check it out and offers to sell medicine to all their sick. They go inside and treat the ill with potions but realizes that they couldn't save everyone. They pay him for his work, but Naofumi tells him that their sickness will return. They reveal that the sword hero defeated a dragon near the village, but after he left the dragon's flesh began to rot and makes everyone around it sick. But no one can remove it because of the poison. Naofumi decides that he will save them and charges 500 silver to take care of the problem. They travel into the mountain and runs through many monsters until they encounter the dragon's loot box. Naofumi steps towards it, but the dragon suddenly begins reassembling and returns from hell. They try to run, but Filo comes forth and uses double kick. Naofumi tries to call her back, but she becomes its dinner. The dragon uses poison fog on them, and Naofumi decides that he will never lose anything again and channels all his hate into the shield. He begins walking forward, so the dragon gives him a high five. But he blocks it and uses Black Air Force energy to blow it away and transforms into Rage Shield. The dragon uses Tail Whip but gets fired. As Naofumi begins walking forward while blocking all its attacks and burns everything he hates. But he hears Raphtalia's voice and returns to his senses. She collapses to the floor, so he tries to heal her, but it has no effect. The monster gets his attention but begins to cry in pain and returns to being unalive to his surprise. Raphtalia congratulates him on defeating the dragon as Filo exits his stomach by ripping it apart from the inside, until she found a crystal that she ate. They return to the village. Naofumi tells the mayor to cure Raphtalia of her curse, but he tells Naofumi that he has to go to a church and buy holy water to heal her. He goes out to his harem where Filo gives him the crystal she found and he feeds it to his shield. He apologizes for allowing them to get hurt, but they tell him that they're partly to blame. He tells them that the three of them will continue to get stronger by working together and tells them to get some rest. The next day, our party finds themselves surrounded by monsters, but Raphtalia is still suffering from her curse. Seeing that it's getting worse, Naofumi decides to cancel their mission and return to the capital, but they spot a girl in the forest surrounded by chocobos. She comes over to Filo and begins showing her some love, so Filo transforms and go off to play with her. Naofumi goes to heal the sick and wraps Raphtalia's wounds. Filo comes back with the girl and she asks if she can travel with them to the capital. Filo and Raphtalia convinces him and she promises that her father will reward him greatly. They go towards the capital while fighting monsters and catching fish to turn into their dinner. In the night, they realize that Filo has been too quiet and goes over to see that the girl is missing. They begin thinking that Filo ate her, but she awakens and reveals to them that she was sleeping inside. Raphtalia realizes that she is much more fluffy than she thought and falls asleep in the giant pillow. In the morning, they arrive at the capital and Filo decides to follow the girl home. Naofumi and Raphtalia head towards the church. He goes inside and sees the Pope walking towards him. He asks the Pope for their best holy water, but the church tries to rip him off, so the Pope scolds the nun and gets the real water to give him. They leave the extortion church, but a knight suddenly begins chasing them, so Naofumi runs away. He turns a corner and tells Raphtalia that he will lead him away for now. He runs into the open where the spear suddenly begins attacking him. He asks for Filo and reveals that he has fallen in love with her. He begins tossing many spears that destroys everything around them, so the knight steps between them and says that they can't fight in public. Mine arrives and commands the soldier to surround them and sanction the duel, but the girl comes forth and forbids them from fighting. It's revealed that she's Mine's sister. Melty scolds the spear for harming the public, then threatens Mine to tell their mother the next time she acts up. Raphtalia and Filo arrive, so the spear goes over to check on her. She says that she has been pulling the carriage, so he tries to attack Naofumi, which makes Filo transforms and kicks him in the baby makers. Melty asks to speak with them, so they go over to the shopkeeper's house. Melty tells them that she is first in line to be queen because Mine has personality issues, but Naofumi refuses to trust anybody who is related to Mine. A guard comes in to call her, so she wishes them goodbye and leaves. It's revealed that her mother sent her to punish the king and her sister for what they did to Naofumi. Filo doesn't understand why he treated her new friend like that and goes outside to cry. A group of knights comes by and heads inside. They reveal that they are all from the village he saved and they want to become a part of his party to fight with him. So Naofumi shows them a trinket and says that if they can get 150 silver to buy it from him, he will accept them. He buys more equipment for his party and finds out that Filo and Raphtalia is ready for a class change, but he can only do it at the hourglass. He heads to the extortion church, where they charge him a fortune to do a class change, but when he tries to pay, the corrupt nun steps up and says that the kidnapping king forbid them from helping the shield hero. So he leaves and heads over to the trader. Naofumi asks if he knows a way to do it. He tells them that there are 3 other hourglasses that exists and recommends him to the furry kingdom. Naofumi realizes that he won't make it before the next wave, so the trader decides to give Filo a weapon to use until then. They head back to their room where Naofumi can wrap Raphtalia's wound. She asks him if she can be with him when he goes back home, but Filo interrupts them, so he decides to send his harem to bed. In the morning, they begin traveling on the road and encounters a town that's destroyed and filled with poor and starving people. They tell him that the bow hero smoked a king that was overtaxing the people, but when the new king took over, they also began doing the same thing. They head back to the capital and goes into a pub to have lunch. They see the bow and sword hero, who comes over and blames him for taking the credit for their work. Naofumi reveals that the bow hero made the situation of the town worse than before and tells the sword hero about the rotting corpse of the dragon he slayed, then leaves them to go to the shopkeeper's place. The knights shows up with the 150 silver, so Naofumi gives them the accessory and tells them to use it and buy new gear before adding them to his party. The next day, they begin preparing for the wave. Naofumi gives Raphtalia a bracelet he made and gives Filo a hair clip as a gift. The time counts down for the wave to begin. They're all teleported away. The knights save the villagers but almost get eaten, but Naofumi's party does a team ultimate to take it down. They see a kung fu grandma dishing out pain, so the knights tell them to go and defeat the boss while they protect the village. Filo runs through the forest and sees the Flying Dutchman's ship. She jumps up to the top where they see the sword hero fighting a Jack Sparrow that keeps respawning and the spear fighting a kraken. They're backed into a corner and begins to argue, so Naofumi comes down to say that they must work together. Naofumi notices that the shadow of Jack Sparrow is alive and tells Raphtalia to cast her light magic to attack it along with the sword hero. All the shadows begin to combine into a phantom, so the useless heroes uses lightning attacks that does nothing. The monster charges a hyper beam and blows away everyone but Naofumi's party. Filo goes forth to test if the monster has a foot fetish, but her attacks are doing little damage. Naofumi decides that he's going to use his rage mode and activates it. He finds himself in an abyss where he sees the zombie dragon and feels its hatred towards the sword hero and himself. His entire body begins to be consumed by the rage shield to form an armor. Filo goes berserk as well and knocks down the phantom, so Naofumi can burn it to greater death. Raphtalia shames the other heroes for just watching while Naofumi does all the work, so they begin to earn their pay and performs a team ultimate. Inside Naofumi, he begins to be consumed by rage but sees Raphtalia and comes back to his senses. He traps the monster in a prison, then gives it some new holes and finishes it off by summoning a hug from hell to embrace it and send the poor bastard back to the Shadow Realm. He deactivates the shield, but they see that another one have appeared, but it suddenly gets showered by death as a woman falls down and begins scolding the heroes for being worthless. Glass tells them that she is their enemy and challenges Naofumi to a fight. Everyone begins to surround her and uses the best attacks against Glass, but she takes no damage and wipes them out instead. Naofumi traps her, but she breaks out and deflects Raphtalia's attack. He tries to hold her down so Filo can use double kick, but all their attacks are futile. Seeing no other option, he decides to use the rage shield. Filo runs at her but gets pushed back, so Naofumi does the same and burns her, but it still does nothing. He decides to trap her in a prison and summon the hug from hell, but even that has no effect. The timer for the wave is coming to an end, so Naofumi tell Raphtalia to blind her so they can do the Joestar special. But Glass has aimbot for her sniper and forces Naofumi to deflect it, so she decides to return to the wave before it disappears. Like the video. If you liked the video, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Stay swifty.